Hi, my name is Elisa Parker. I am with the Park Hill School District. I am the Autism and Assistive Technology coach here at the Gerner Center, which is the Early Childhood Program. Today we're going to talk about AAC Basics. Today we're going to discuss what is AAC and why do we use it, some of the terms and tools that go along with AAC, and talk about functional communication and language expansion. So what is AAC? AAC stands for Augmentative Alternative Communication. It can be as simple as facial expressions and gestures that we use, maybe passing a note to a coworker or a friend. These are examples of what we call unaided AAC. Today, we're going to focus more on aided AAC systems. This could be anything where there's letters, words, pictures on a board, or maybe in a notebook, or maybe there's a picture on a screen and an individual activates a picture on that screen and it produces some type of word or sound. So here are some examples of some aided AAC systems that, at least in our district or in our building specifically, you can find on any other day. There on the left-hand side, there are some images of some manual boards or some flip books as well. You can find a lot of these on the company's websites. For example, there's a link down here for the Sotillo printouts, and you can find these flip books and these manual boards that you can print that can be used all over your home. You can put them in the bathroom. Maybe you don't want to bring in the iPad or more of a high-tech system in the bathroom. So you can put these kind of systems all over your house, or maybe even outdoors or in the garage, or maybe when you go to the pool in the summer. So again, good uses for low-tech devices in combination with higher-tech devices as well. This one in the middle is what we call a picture exchange communication system. And again, the child is using this. He's building a sentence on the sentence strip and then exchanging it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, and I'll give you some examples of that in a little while. On the right-hand side, we have more of those higher tech systems. We have 3 iPads here. One of them is a Sotillo product, which is the Touch Chat with Word Power. The one in the very middle is Proloquo to Go. And the one on the right in the mint green case is a Tobii Dynavox. It's Snap Plus Core app. In the middle and the very top is what we call a dedicated device. And these are straight from the company. This one is from Sotillo itself. It's called the NovaChat. It has the same application over here on the right as this red iPad. So you can get them in different versions depending on what you need. Over here, we have a Talkable 3, which is more of a mid-tech device. I would never use this alone. I would always combine this with more of a robust vocabulary of some sort, whether it's a printed version or a higher tech version. But a lot of our kids might have a combination of these symbols and systems to help them depending on what their environment is. But we want to make sure they have access to multiple modes of communication. Again, aided and unaided, and a combination of different types of aided systems as well. So here are some examples of some more aided systems. This is a little boy who is using just his eyes to activate the buttons on the computer screen. And he's actually using this more as an environmental control. He's going to activate this Alexa to play one of his favorite songs.
Alexa, lady looks like a lady.
That's the song of the day. Your fave.
So one of our main goals for our kids is for them to be more independent and be able to have some leisure skills and do some things on their own without the need of an adult or an older sibling to help them or a caregiver. So this is an example of how this little guy can just start playing some songs that he loves because he now has a way to access that, even though his body wouldn't let him, his eyes would. Here's an example of a little boy who's using a company or an app from the company PRC originally. He's actually using Lamp Words for Life on an iPad.
You want to make a cookie?
And what I love about this is that he's not just saying, I want cookie, he's wanting to make a cookie. So it's not just that he's wanting to eat a cookie, he's wanting to do some pretend play and make cookies, which is pretty fun. And again, gets us past the requesting phase and more into more playful interaction and engagement. Okay, so why do we use AAC? Well, we want to make sure that everyone understands that everyone has a right to communicate. If you look at the Communication Bill of Rights, there is a link here to that. It's under the ASHA.org website, and it goes through lots of different rights that we must have as someone who is communicating. We want to be able to be an equal member of the school and community. We want to be able to ask questions and share our own opinions. We want to be able to say no and reject and refuse. That's important and powerful. To be able to protest when things are not going the way we want them to be able to share our feelings, to be spoken with and not about. So take a look at those Bill of Rights at your leisure. With this link here. And again, this image is been created by Kristen Potts, one of our SLPs. She just put it in a really fun format with some great pictures to go along with it. So why do we need to pair AAC with spoken language? So if you are using just spoken language with our kids, our typically developing kids, by 18 months, babies have heard 4,380 hours of spoken language. And at this age, we aren't even expecting them to verbalize back to us. So that's in our kids who are typically developing, no concerns at all. If we do the same for our AAC learners, if they only see those symbols modeled for them during maybe their speech therapy time twice a week for 20 to 30 minutes a week, it will take them 84 years to get to the point of where our typically developing children to this level of 4,380 hours. So we can't wait. We cannot wait to model AAC for our kids. Spoken language obviously hasn't been enough for some of our kids. So we need to provide them alternate modes and methods to understand and use communication effectively and functionally. So we've got to use aided language stimulation to do that. And we'll talk about what that is in just a little bit. So will AAC impede my child's ability to use verbal language? There's a lot of research out there that's saying it actually does the opposite. It actually supports that verbal language. And even if your child doesn't become a natural speaker as far as using natural voice to communicate, it's providing them the structure and the organization of what language is and meeting their needs. And again, a powerful tool to be able to communicate your needs, right? And your protests and your desires and so forth. So is my child ready for AAC? There is no prerequisite to learning AAC. If they're not interested in communicating using the device, that's where we jump in and help them learn how to use it. So we have to learn how to use the device first as well. Cause and effect, again, if we're modeling and pairing an image with or a toy, like if they want to play with the Bumble Ball and we activate the image of Bumble Ball on their device or showing them a picture on their textbook, then we say Bumble Ball on the device and then we hand them the toy that they really want. They're learning that cause and effect within that moment. You're modeling that connection of picture and object. Pretty soon they'll be able to hit that device on their own and activate it to get what they want. So another issue that comes up is if my child might be verbal, but they're not really using words functionally. So this can be an example of a kid who uses a lot of scripts or maybe their speech is maybe unintelligible. So, but they're not using it to maybe show communicative intent. Sometimes we find that our kids who have that visual representation of an AAC device in front of them, it can help organize their thoughts and make more of a direct communication with another partner. So how can I help my child at home? We talked about it, being able to repair communication breakdowns. This can decrease their frustration and help them to not be misunderstood when they're talking. Being able to build those relationships and make connections is a huge one. Again, being able to express their interests, their opinions, you can start to see their little personalities. And again, moving beyond just requests, so basic wants and needs. And making sure that they have access to their voice at all times, whatever mode that may be. So at home, some of those things might be daily routines and interaction with family. In the community, it may be related more to safety as far as having that personal information, their phone number, their address, their parents' names and caregivers, etc. Being able to interact and shop, order your own food at a restaurant. At school, it can be interaction with peers, looking at literacy, language expansion, and demonstrating their knowledge in those subject areas of math, science, and so forth. So being able to have the vocabulary to say things on your own and to generate your own thoughts and ideas is very important. So here's a community example of a high school student who's ordering food. Take a note of how patient the communicative partner is in waiting for this individual's response. That's a hard skill for some of us to learn, is that wait time that it may take. But it's really important that our individuals who use AAC have the time and understand that somebody's going to wait for them to give their message out.
Play it off of her. Play it off of her. Would you like 8 nuggets? I'm gonna go grab ice. Okay. What, 8 or 12? What are your numbers? 8 or 12? Okay, find the 8 then. Oh, we didn't.
All right, so some of the terms that are pretty popular these days are core vocabulary and fringe vocabulary. Core vocabulary relates to words that can be used in approximately 80% of the words that we speak every day or read as well. And those are words that can be used in multiple environments in multiple ways. These are words such as it and get on. They can have many meanings depending on what context you're using them in. They give us more bang for our buck when we're teaching individuals to communicate. However, this fringe vocabulary can also be very important. It makes up about 20% of what we say. And it's related to more specific topics, individuals, our preferences, our loves for things as well. So, for example, if I wanted to say, I want to eat, those would all be core words. However, it doesn't tell you what I want. So that fringe can be pretty important. If I said, I want to eat, and then my husband gave me Brussels sprouts, I wouldn't be so happy about it. But if I said, I want to eat, and then put pizza in there, then I'd be pretty happy because I love some pizza. So again, that fringe can be very powerful. So don't forget about the fringe as well. So examples of core and fringe vocabulary. Here's an example I mentioned earlier that you could put up a core board or a manual board, maybe in the bathroom or in the kitchen. Up here, I was talking to a family yesterday about this, maybe putting a core board up in their kitchen and then having some fringe vocabulary above that board so they can do some communication again. Asking things for, I want to eat French fries. So they can combine all of those. And maybe in the beginning, when your child is first learning to use an AAC system, whether it's a printed manual board or a high-tech device, maybe you start with just those nouns. So I might just start with fries. And then after he learns where fries is, and he knows where nuggets are, and he has a good understanding of that French vocabulary, then maybe you start adding in an action word. Maybe you say eat fries, or maybe you say want fries, or go eat hamburger, meaning you want to go out to eat a hamburger. So you can see how you can start to really use that core vocabulary to change the context of what you're asking within your French as well. So keep that in mind, that you can use, again, a combination of both. So here's an example of core vocabulary and a trike. This might be a time where your child that can't have the iPad or the communication book hanging off of them while they're riding their bike. So you could put some things on their actual handlebars that might be helpful for them to say in that moment. And again, we put all core words here like look, help, turn, go, stop, finish. But you could add some French vocabulary with that. Maybe it's I want to ride to Joe's house down the street, or look at the bird and have a bird on there, or a squirrel, or maybe it's now you want to play ball instead, or something else. So you can add it to anything. Just being creative is kind of the fun part of adding this vocabulary to multiple environments. So here's one down here, some French vocabulary, maybe for the bathroom. That might be another place where you maybe don't want to get your iPad wet, but you can have a core board, a manual board, and then have some French posted along with it. So the AAC coach is on Facebook, and I've been following her for about a year now. She has some really great one-page posts that she puts out with some really great information. She started out looking more at specific environments and activities for kids using their AAC device. So, and now she's doing some more kind of general kind of things, such as like how to be a good communication partner. So check her out on Facebook if you can. Here's another one that she put out about what is functional communication. We mentioned that earlier, but that's something we were going to discuss today. So functional communication can be expressing your own opinions and preferences, and looking at those wants and needs, those protests, disagreeing and complaining. How often do you sit there and negotiate and disagree? I know my teenager does it all the time with me. So those are powerful tools and powerful things to be able to do with your AAC device. Being able to ask questions to gain information, talking about your personal experiences. When I'm talking with a friend that I haven't seen in a while, my first thing isn't to say a bunch of wants and needs. It's to say, how are you? How are you doing? How's the family? How's Kyler doing? You know, asking all of those different questions and making those connections. So make sure that vocabulary is represented and that you're modeling that type of language for your AAC user as well. So what is aided language? We just talked about modeling. Aided language or modeling is just pointing to the picture while you use it. So if I have my AAC device in front of me, I'm pointing to the picture on the device and I'm saying, oh man, I'm so tired today. I need to go to sleep, or I need to go take a nap, or when is it time to go home? And you're finding those buttons on the device while you're speaking the word at the same time. So you're modeling on the AAC device, whether it's a picture, just a printed version, or a speech generation device. Either way, you're showing them where those words are on that system. Below here is another link to what is aided language. It's from Project Core. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the websites that have dedicated device versions of AAC have their own printed versions of manual boards. Project Core also has a lot of manual boards that they've created for individuals and family members to use. So check them out. So here's an example of aided language at the preschool. These are some of the words on the left that I targeted when I was just having a conversation with these two little girls about their new strap on their iPad.
Your page set up is on the wrong order. Did you get a new strap? What is this? What did you get? You got a new strap? Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. I love it. It is I think it's pretty too. What do you think? Do you think it's pretty or do you think it's yucky? You think it's pretty? You do? Oh my goodness, I think it's so pretty and it's ew. How does it make you feel? Do you like to be strapped? Does it make you feel happy or sad? Okay. You want me to go away? Yes. It makes me feel happy. How about you? It makes you happy too. Come inside. Oh my gosh. Okay, you go back to your cookie.
All right, so on that, oops, it's gonna go all the way to YouTube now. Let me stop that.
Did you get a new strap?
So one of the reasons I like this one is because, again, it's a conversation that I'm having with them. I'm not just asking them what they want to do next while they're playing in the house area. We were visiting with Hannah Foley. She was our presenter at our parent night, where this presentation was originally presented at. And she was talking about, as an AAC user herself, that you should never touch an AAC user's device because it's their personal words. And it was eye-opening for us all to hear that. A good reminder to try and not touch the AAC user's device within that. So if you can, try with just using gestures, or maybe you're modeling on a second device, or maybe you're using a manual board to model for your individual. So yeah, I did do a little bit of navigation for these little girls here, and I was allowing the peer to be a part of that as well. So in this case, in this classroom with this little girl, she was okay with me using me pointing and activating, and her peer engaging and interacting with that as well. I think it's I think the takeaway from what Hannah was saying, what I'm taking away from it, is always respect that AAC user and their device, and what they are telling you, reading their cues. When they tell you things that they don't want you to use it, honor that, and find another way to support them in that aided language. In the beginning, you're going to have kids who have a difficult time referencing maybe a second device. It really has to be on the same device. So again, looking at maybe just pointing or using a laser pointer or things like that to help model that language when you can. And then you're going to find kids who you really do have to activate it so they learn that cause and effect. But if it's somebody who's been using that AAC device for a long time, like Hannah, it's not necessary. She's a proficient user. So keep that in mind as far as the level, the type of engagement, and so forth for your kids. So here's an example of modeling without any expectation of a response.
Purple hamburger. I'm sorry. Red hamburger or purple hamburger? I saw that you were confused. Purple, please. Okay, there you go. Sorry, I messed that up. I confused you. You like purple, silly pig. Purple hamburger. Hey, it's my turn. Purple, you put him purple. He likes your purple hamburger. It's my turn. I'm going to give him a yellow hamburger. Okay? Here goes. Yum, 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 yum. Hey, it was yellow. Can you help me? Help me? Help me push. Help me. Can you help me? Push, 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 push. Okay, Jonathan's turn. Not yet. No, he's on the top. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Uh-oh! You made him pop already. Uh-oh. Wow, that was pretty
So the nice thing about this video is that she's modeling uh-oh, and that's cool, and all kinds of words. And she's kind of pausing and looking at him, but she's not saying, say cool, or that's fun, or show me yellow, or point to yellow. She's just modeling it on the device, and it becomes more of a connection and an interaction that's fun and engaging. And he's just following her lead and imitating it just because he wants to, not because she's demanding him to. So that is the difference between testing our kids and just giving them the opportunities to respond. So that's the next thing, is make sure that you're not testing your kids, making sure that you're not saying, show me the shoe, find happy, show me happy, you're happy, show me happy, where's happy? That is not real communication that is functional and meaningful for our kids. You're teaching them where things are on the device, but there's a much better way to do that. And again, it's just naturally showing them where it is within the interaction itself. You can also use phrases if your child is not sure where a word is, but you think they're looking for it, or they're kind of stuck. You can use words such as, I wonder if you're talking about, and showing them or pointing to it on the device. Could it be that or are you thinking about? Use more natural guiding questions to see what their response is, rather than anticipating what their response should be. That's something I have to work on personally as well. So inspire, don't require comes from Rachel Madel. She's pretty much coined that term these days. And again, that's just looking at the individual's motivation. What do they love to do? What are they interested in? And keep that in mind when you're coming up with opportunities to teach that AAC and just language skills in general. Nobody wants to communicate unless it's really highly motivating and fun. I mean, how boring is that, right? If you're just learning facts about things, that's not much fun. But if it's your favorite thing to watch, maybe it's a favorite TV show, or a favorite toy that you like to play with, it's a lot more fun and engaging to interact about that, right? So it doesn't have to be perfect. The modeling doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be meaningful and fun. So here's an example of a little girl who's using single word icons in her PECS book. As you go through, you'll see she's traveling to the book, which is a phase 2 type of opportunity. She's flipping through the book and she's discriminating between the pictures. That's a phase 3. She's reaching out, which is actually more of a phase 1 kind of that skill. And then she's traveling to the communicative partner, and that is a phase 2. So again, in PECS, phase 1, you're learning the exchange. Phase 2, you're learning to travel. You're learning distance and persistence. In phase 3, you're learning to discriminate between the icons and learning to search through the book and find those icons, and then so forth. So that is her in phase 3 of PECS that she has mastered. She's just using one single icon at this time. Over here, we have a little guy who's using that LAMP Words for Life app, and he is learning where his words are by using Find a Word. So he likes to he will find a word written in the environment, and then he can actually type that word in and search it on his device. So he's learning his vocabulary a different way. He's kind of self-teaching himself here, which is fun. Okay, so some of our kids have those high skills. Maybe they're really interested in letters and numbers and they can copy them and keyboard them in. So use that to their advantage to learn actual vocabulary. They may not be able, maybe they can do all of that, but they're not really speaking or using their words functionally. So this provides them an opportunity to explore and play with that vocabulary and those words in a way that has more meaning for them. Doesn't want me to move on here. There we go. So language expansion, looking at language, we've talked about maybe more of those single words, such as using the PECs and using the single icon, and looking for one word on the manual board. Maybe it's you're pointing to hamburger on the French vocabulary. So now we want to go into combining those, which I alluded to earlier. So one way is to look at core only. So maybe you're again, we've worked on stop. Now we go to stop it. Or we've worked on help. So now we want to add the me and add help me. So you can use that core word approach of just those words. You can also use a core plus friend. So maybe we're starting with just those nouns, those very highly motivating type of items. And those can be things such as, like I mentioned, hamburger. So maybe you're adding eat hamburger and adding those verbs, adjectives, or prepositions. Those would be more of that French vocabulary when you get into those verbs, adjectives, prepositions, etc. So just think about that. When you get one word down, then you add one more onto it and keep expanding from there. So here's some examples of some kids. On the left is an individual who's starting to combine using his PECS book. He's now in phase 4 of PECS. Here he is.
So, you want
Hamburger.
me too?
And I love it too because again that the motor plan and the visual organization of those icons, he's able to sequence things grammatically. He's also pairing verbalization along with it now that he's having some success and understands how the system works. So pretty fun stuff. This little guy just started using his AAC device a few months ago. And him and his family have really been working on expansion pretty hard the last couple of months. So let's see what he's saying now. So he used a lot of core vocabulary. I want to watch, and then YouTube was his French, and then he went back to please, which is more kind of just a helper word. But he could have said, I want to watch Blippi on there, which would have been even more of a French vocabulary word. Okay, so this is an example of a little girl who is using a PECS type of system, but there's a lot of the vocabulary that we put in her book is very specific. It's more of core vocabulary versus phrase-based kind of things, such as I want, I see, I hear, which is what you might find in PECS. Again, you can make any icons you want for PECS, but when the system was first developed, those were the carrier phrases they started with. But you can add any kind of adjectives, prepositions, and so forth within the system, whatever your little heart desires. But again, we kind of tried to make this more of a combination of core vocabulary in a PECS format. So let's take a look at her.
Okay, we'll make it go again.
So I show you these videos because I want you to see it in action. I also wanted to show you because, again, just be creative in what's working for your individual communicative partner. If something isn't working, it may not be the right combination of tools. So just brainstorming and being creative as a team with your therapists and your teachers and family members can really help. There's no wrong or right answer. It's just what best fits your child. And you may just have to kind of keep exploring for a while to find the right fit. So scripting is another area I want to talk about. This image over here on the left, this came from Kristen Pons. A lot of these videos today have come from Kristen. And she had a little boy who had learned to use I want a lot. So the classroom had focused on that quite a bit. And then he got to a point where they were modeling and teaching him descriptive words and feelings such as being sad. And so in this moment, he had learned to use that sad had a meaning. He learned that what sad was. He could use that. And then he got to a point where he was kind of overgeneralizing the phrase I want. So he put I want to sad instead of being able to say I feel sad. He knew he was supposed to use sentences and was learning that expansion. But again, overgeneralizing the word I want or the phrase I want. So think about that when you're teaching a phrase or a script. You may essentially teach them that it's just one word. What he should have said is I feel, right? So again, he didn't understand that difference. He thought I and want went together all the time. Sometimes there are opportunities where it might be necessary to chunk and put phrases together. And those could be more those social interactions that maybe the child wants to sustain or engage, or quick phrases, we might call them. And we can put those under categories of maybe social interactions with others. But just when you want an interaction to move quickly, or maybe there's a presentation that they're doing, then you may want to combine those phrases and words together just to make things go a little bit quicker. So here's an example of a page that I made years ago for this little guy. And we did use a lot of scripts back then. We didn't have the core vocabulary app at that time. We had one that was more category based, and it didn't allow for a lot of those core word combinations as far as it was set up. So I ended up making some scripted kind of pages. It works for him. Over to the left is now the version that I would use with him if I had that app back then. But what I wanted to show you was the type of interaction, again, that waiting and interaction and playing and following his lead. And then I follow his lead and it goes back and forth. Oh, if I can actually get it to play. Oh my goodness. Let me see if I can find it.
You ready to knock it down?
Knock it down.
Oh my gosh! Uh-oh. What do you think, Devin? Should we do it again?
Do it again.
Crash! Crash! Oh no! Do we do it again?
Do it again.
Okay. Should we do it on the bottom? Okay. All right. Do you need some in the middle? You want some in the middle? Oh, we're on the bottom. Okay. You know, you're ready for the middle. Yeah. Okay. In the middle. Just like that. Okay, you're ready.
So what I also liked about this is he used a combination of verbalizations and the AAC. So again, honoring all of those forms of communication is very important. So the other point I wanted to talk about was babbling and exploring. You might find that your child loves to just play with the device, and it looks like that's all they're doing is they're just using it as a toy. Well, guess what? Our little guys, when they're young, are typically developing students, children. They have a phase where they're babbling and exploring, right? They're playing with their language. They're making nonsense sounds and words. Allow our kids who are learning AAC to do this as well. It's an important phase that you go through with typical language development. So allow them that opportunity to do that as well. And it may be a little repetitive. It may drive you a little bit crazy, but there is a time and a place for that. Now, if you find that you're in the middle of having a conversation with them and they get stuck on hitting the words over and over and over and over and over again, then you can interrupt them and just teach it and just shape it like you would a kid who's just talking out loud constantly. This is a time to be quiet. I need you to be listening to my words as well. And give them those same behavioral strategies and supports that you would give any other child who's just verbally saying it. But again, it is a natural piece of it. It's something that can be shaped, and it's okay for them to do it at times. So I want to do a quick takeaway here, saying that remember that requesting is just the beginning. We talked about using those high motivating activities or items, and that's okay, or topics that they love to talk about, and that's great. Start there, but do not end there. Know that there's more to communication than just requesting. And so I've listed some here. This is a page that I'll sometimes use with families, and when we're trying to make a plan for next steps for an individual who's using AAC and helping, if the family is helping them model for the child, we'll look at that. So we might talk about, okay, what's something at home that they just hate and they would love to be able to protest, or they're dropping to the floor, or they're throwing something across the room. What words can we teach them on their device, vocabulary wise, that they can say instead? And so this might be something such as, no, I don't want to, or I need help, or I need a minute, showing them where those words are on the device so they could start modeling it for their child at home. So thanks for coming today. I also added a little parent handbook here. It's a Google document and that I found and just looked really helpful as far as making a plan for you guys at home. So if you want to look at that, it might be a nice way to organize your thoughts and ideas for your next plan of action. And please feel free to reach out to me. My email's here. I'm parker.k12.mo.us. I also have an Instagram page called @purposefulparker, where I might post some things as well. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.